The craziest Monaco Grand Prix ever. The Monaco Grand Prix gets a lot of stick for being quite a boring race, doesn't it? To be honest, it receives pretty fair criticism nowadays, as F1 really does seem to have outgrown the streets of Monaco. Anyway, that's a video for another day. I'm here to tell you about the craziest Monaco Grand Prix ever, and perhaps even the wildest F1 race there has ever been for drama. I'm of course talking about the 1996 Monaco GP. An honourable mention has to go to the 1982 version as well, where the last few laps saw a number of retirements from the race lead, with drivers crashing, running out of fuel. It was chaos. However, the top spot goes to the 1996 race, and let me tell you why. The craziness began even before the race, when very strangely David Coulthard borrowed one of Michael Schumacher's race helmets because David's visor kept misting up. Completely random fact, but I wanted to include it anyway. Right, back to the race itself, and let me run you through the timeline of how only 3 cars finished the race. And the first retirement goes to, drumroll please, Andrea Mortamini for crashing in the warm-up session before the race. Yep, back in 96 there used to be a warm-up session an hour before the race to perfect their setup, strategy and so on. We now move to lights out for our second retirement, and it was Max Verstappen's dad, Jos, who ended up crashing at turn 1 as he risked dry tyres on what was a wet track. Funnily enough, he may well have been able to carry on in that race, but Arrows, the team he was driving for, had run out of front wings due to Verstappen and his teammate Rosset losing so many over the course of the weekend, and the only 2 they had left were on the cars. Verstappen was not the only one to retire on lap 1 either. The 2 Minardis of Pedro Lamy and Giancarlo Fisichella crashed into each other, and Rubens Barrichello, who had sustained damage at the start, spun out too. You'd think at this rate I'll be moving on to at least lap 2 for more retirements, right? Well, unfortunately not. My favourite driver of all time, Michael Schumacher, also went out on lap 1 by making a mistake just before Portier. Very sad Schumi noises. That's 6 cars out in 1 lap. 16 of 22 cars remain. It only took 1 more lap to have another retirement in the form of Yukio Katayama, and then 1 more lap after that for Ricardo Rosset, both of which were accidents out on track. Fast forward 2 more laps after that to lap 5, and you then have Pedro Diniz coming to a halt due to a transmission failure. All of a sudden 13 drivers were left, and it's only been 5 laps into the race. Gerhard Berger, who could have easily won the race in the Benetton, although you could say that for quite a few drivers in this race really, had a gearbox problem on lap 9 which took him out of the race. Then there was quite a bit of calm. No retirements, but still a bit of craziness. It was around lap 27 that drivers started to box for dries, and some were going 10 seconds quicker than the leaders who had stayed out on wets. With these changeable conditions, you're of course going to get more mistakes, and it was the king of the grid walk, Martin Brundle, who spun out on lap 30. Half the field were now out, not even half race distance. Olivier Panis, who was driving for a low midfield team called Ligier, maybe a 2022 Aston Martin in today's terms, was starting to make some serious moves through the field after being one of the first to put slicks on, and was bringing himself into contention for some points. Remember, only the top 6 scored in these days. This included dive-bombing Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari at the Lowe's hairpin, leaving Irvine stranded as he was bounced into. He eventually carried on though after being pushed backwards. The stewards didn't investigate that much in the 90s, let me tell you that. Moving back towards the front, after Michael Schumacher retired at the start, it was pretty plain sailing for Damon Hill. He'd completely checked out at the front. You know where I'm going with this, don't you? Lap 40, engine goes boom. He'd never won the Monaco Grand Prix and sadly never did, and it was easily his best chance. The win was his, but reliability said nope, not today. Jean Alesi then took the lead for 20 laps until his race was undone with a suspension failure. Alesi was one of those drivers who had the worst luck ever. Let me give you an example. He was once leading at Monza in a Ferrari, and his camera came off the car, hit Berger, his teammate behind, which caused him to retire. And then later on, Alesi's own engine blew up, denying a Ferrari 1-2 at Monza. Now back to this Monaco GP story, there was also a retirement on the same lap for Luca Badoa, who had a collision with Jacques Villeneuve when lapping him. So after lap 60, there were 8 cars left. Olivier Panis takes over the lead of the race in a Ligier, which is completely unheard of. And what a race to lead, the Monaco Grand Prix. Jacques Villeneuve retired 6 laps later due to the damage sustained by his earlier impact. 7 cars left. You'd think with only 7 left, there surely can't be much else that can go wrong. Well, it did. Eddie Irvine was circulating around pretty slowly and a lap down already, just ahead of Mika Salo and Mika Hakkinen, who were battling for position a few seconds behind. Eddie then spun at the same place Michael Schumacher did and was facing the wrong way. Instead of sitting there and waiting for a safe moment to potentially turn around, Irvine 180s his car straight into the path of Mika Salo, who crashes into the back of the Ferrari, and Hakkinen into the back of Salo. If you actually watch the incident, it's pretty funny. 3 more out, 4 drivers left. Heinz-Harald Frentzen was the last to retire on the final lap as he was so far behind in 4th place, but also the last of the running cars, so could secure the position even by coming into the pits and ending his race 1 lap early. The podium ended up being Olivier Panis, David Coulthard and Johnny Herbert, which were basically 3 midfield teams at the time. A ridiculous result. There you have it, a look into the craziest Monaco Grand Prix ever. Can you think of a crazier F1 race? Let us know in the comment section below.